Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this legislation includes $10 billion in grants for the implementation of next generation 911 services. This is intended to make 911 services more accessible, effective, and resilient. It is also intended to better protect first responders by allowing callers to send text messages, images, or videos to 911 so they can better assess the nature of the emergency before responding. So my amendment is common sense and straightforward. If a jurisdiction has made any effort or taken action, including voting on ordinances, budgets, legislation, or resolutions to defund or eliminate law enforcement, they are not eligible to receive funding through this grant program. Let me be clear. Law enforcement and first responders play a critical role in our society. They protect the law-abiding from the lawless. It is vitally important they receive the necessary funding and training to keep our communities safe. The ability to call 911 and be connected as quickly as possible to first responders is a critical and life-saving public service for members of every American community. And I fully support funding law enforcement to ensure they have the tools necessary to keep their communities safe and respond to emergencies, including upgraded 911 services. But the decisions some activist local politicians have made to deny the citizens they serve these vital, life-saving public services is both reckless and irresponsible. Not surprisingly, some of these jurisdictions, including major cities run by Democrats that have defunded their police, are now singing a different tune now that they've seen the devastating consequences of increased crime in their cities, including murder rates up by double digits in many cities. In Oakland, California, city lawmakers in April restored $3.3 million of the $29 million in police cuts, and the mayor has also proposed to increase the budget by $24 million, which would restore nearly all of the funding. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, who led efforts as a city councilman to cut the police budget by $22 million, has now proposed to increase the police budget by $27 million. According to a survey by the Police Executive Research Forum, nearly half of the 258 police agencies surveyed said their budgets have been or were likely to be cut. And the cuts prevent purchases of new police equipment first, followed by training, hiring, new offices, and overtime spending. These communities defunding the police are not preventing crime from happening. They're preventing first responders from having the necessary tools and equipment to respond to emergencies and prevent crime. These local politicians are endangering the lives of the law-abiding because their actions are actually increasing the crime rates. Mr. Chairman, why should the federal government provide additional funding to jurisdictions that have chosen to not provide critical funding for law enforcement? You can't have it both ways. You can't vote to defund or eliminate your law enforcement and also ask American taxpayers to help you upgrade your 911 services to reach these same first responders. If a jurisdiction doesn't feel the need to have law enforcement, who exactly are they expecting to be on the other end of the line when their citizens make emergency calls? Without funding, what resources are they supposed to respond to an emergency with to save lives and prevent threats to their community? Mr. Chairman, if communities decide they don't want law enforcement, then it stands to reason that these communities don't need funding to upgrade the tools to communicate with law enforcement. After all, if a jurisdiction cuts funding for their police, they could redirect their funding to their 911 network if they feel that that's necessary. But the federal government, the American taxpayer, should not be rewarding entities that do not stand with our police. And I encourage my colleagues to support this common sense amendment. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.